I recently got way over my head while prepping for my Dungeons & Dragons campaign that I just started up. Hi everyone, I'm Tabletop Ackley. I have a very bad habit in that if I can do something myself, I'm going to try and do it myself. And this includes everything from world building to map creation, and that's where I ran into problems. With 3 days left before my campaign started, I realized I had no battle maps. If my game was going to be run in person, that wouldn't be a problem. I would just take a vinyl battle map and use dry erase markers to draw the map that I want. But I was going to be running this game online using Foundry Virtual Tabletop. And there's just something about using maps made with dry erase marker on a basic grid that doesn't feel good when you're playing digitally. You see all these amazing battle maps online using these amazing art assets, and there's just this feeling that you have to try to get to that same level. Now, I love drawing maps, but usually I only draw region maps and I reserve battle maps for the aforementioned dry erase marker maps. But I wanted to try my hand at drawing detailed battle maps and scanning those into Foundry. With only 3 days left, that was an incredibly ambitious goal, and it didn't end up working quite as well as I had hoped. In this video, I just want to take you along this journey I experienced of trying to create these battle maps from scratch using pen and paper. Let me tell you about how it went while I show you what I did, and also tell you a little bit about the adventure that this campaign was starting with. I always start my maps with a general outline done in pencil. You'll see that initially I had backlighting so that I could more clearly see the grid through the paper. But it didn't look great on camera, so I ended up going without the backlighting, and it wasn't an issue. Now, allow me to tell you a little bit about the story behind these maps. The adventurers have heard rumors of people going missing in the town of White Oak. When they arrive, they find the mayor's own son had gone missing just the day prior. They discover he had been playing in the old abandoned silver mines and decide to investigate there. This first map is for the entrance of those mines, where the adventurers will find a group of suspicious-looking people camped outside. These turn out to be bandits who have temporarily used the entrance of the mine to hide some stolen goods, but are ultimately unrelated to the missing people. Here you can see me spending far too much time detailing a campfire for said bandits. This is a case of me getting far ahead of myself when I really didn't have the time to be going into this much detail. After dealing with the bandits, the adventurers will find the mines have been overrun by giant spiders. These spiders have been capturing unsuspecting villagers who roam too close to the mines. This includes the mayor's son, who the adventurers will find wrapped in web and suffering from the spider's poison, with only a little time left before he'll succumb to it. Having found the target of their search, the adventurers can leave, but doing so will leave a far greater threat deeper in the mines, and the disappearances will continue. That's the basic story of this adventure. Now, something I have to be very mindful while I'm working on this, because I'm using pen, any mistakes I make are permanently part of the map. Sometimes I'm able to recover by just adding details that I hadn't expected to add before. Other times I just have to accept that there is a defect in this map, and generally people aren't going to notice, and even if they do, they aren't going to mind. They recognize that this is something you've created yourself, and they're going to appreciate that regardless. Now in this map, I wanted a creek for the adventurers to cross that would have a bit of shallow water. I started to fill the gaps between the rocks in with pebbles and quickly realized that that really wasn't going to make a lot of sense. If I filled all the gaps with pebbles, the map was going to be extremely busy. The black lining would need to be much fainter. I recovered this by only filling out either side, making it look like there were pebbles right along the edge of the water. I then created some rippling effects going around the larger stones. Having the outline of the area I intended to fill in with pebbles made it very clear where the shallow crossing was meant to be. Despite my initial reservations about just how the shallows are starting to look, I'm actually quite happy with how they turned out. Satisfied, I moved on to adding just a little bit of detail to the creek so that it was obvious what direction the water was flowing. Then it was time to go back to adding details to the camp. One of the things I was racking my brain around was how I was going to imply that there was a road leading into the camp, In my experience, it doesn't work very well to draw kind of abstract paths. It was better to draw details such as grass and stone along the path. Where the wheels of a wagon might be frequently passing, there would be very few of these details, and thus we've used negative space to inform the viewer where the path is. At this point, the map was nearly complete, but there was one more thing I really needed to nail down, and that was various bushes throughout the forest. What I like to do when I'm unsure how I'm going to approach something is I'll take a blank sheet of paper and just doodle until I have a pattern I'm happy with. After that, it's just a case of going through the tedious work of drawing bushes throughout the rest of the map. Something I realized before I was even done with the first map was the scale I was using was just too confined. Because I was doing a 1 inch per 5 foot scale, I was really limiting myself in how much I could fit into a battle map. For the other 2 maps, I decided to half the size so I could fit more in. I wasn't trying to give the players a whole lot of room for exploration here. My intention was to keep them on track, but I still felt like I needed more room. I also went way too detailed on the first map. So for the next 2, I tried to keep it more minimalistic. The irony is that the first map took me 2 days to complete, partially because of IRL complications, but the players barely spent 5 minutes on it. So all those details I added barely got appreciated. The other 2 maps I did much quicker, spending maybe 2 hours total between the 2. And that's where the players spent the bulk of their time. I don't regret spending that time on the first map, but I'm learning that I need to get the basics of the maps down first, and then time permitting, go in and fill out the details. Even with my strict 3-day timeline, I had other plans for these maps. I wanted to take them into Photoshop, for instance, and kind of learn how to color them. I may still go back to these maps and try to colorize them, but it just wasn't viable for this first campaign. I was, however, able to use Foundry and do some really interesting things with Fog of War and lighting, even in the short amount of time I had. With a little more time, I think I could do some really cool things with these maps. Now, I don't know if this video is helpful at all, but hopefully it's at least somewhat entertaining. If it is, think about giving the video a like. Also consider subscribing if you're interested in seeing more videos about tabletop games in general. I plan on making videos about terrain creation, painting minis, Dungeons and Dragons wherever I can think of a concept that works, and board games in general. So I hope you'll stick around.